What is up, everybody? It's James here from the Sawyer Family Reviews channel, bringing you another Super 7 Ultimates Silverhawks Wave 2 review. Today we're taking a look at Monstar. Is he awesome? Let's find out. Starting things off with the packaging, Super 7 Ultimates come in these mailer-style boxes. They're brown, they've got the logo up front, Monstar, Limbo, Mob King there, Super 7 logo down below, and on the back we've just got a bunch of choking hazardy type stuff, another Super 7 logo, yada yada yada. Monstar's box is much wider than your standard Ultimate style box. Do I have an Ultimate style box here? Just to kind of give you an idea. So that is how much wider it is than Steel Will's box, for example. Put that off to the side. You don't care about the mailer, though, do you? You want to see what's inside. And that's what's inside. So with Monstar, the villain characters have red boxes, red, shiny, foily type boxes, as opposed to the heroic characters, which had more of a blue style box. Monstar's has Monstar's face, the armored Monstar face embossed in the front, and the Silverhawks logo embossed on the back. It's going to be hard to see because it is so shiny that it's going to keep on picking up glare from my lights. And then inside the box, we've got Monstar all laid out with his two extra heads, Sky Shadow in two different forms, the figure, and then extra hands. Now, did this box have to be this wide, or could we have gotten what they do with Turtles, where there's like a deeper box? Because the width on this, the depth, whatever you want to call it, is about the same as a regular Ultimate style box, whereas some of those Turtle ones are just like deeper. Like Leatherhead was a very deep box. And they probably could have got away with that and just put the extra two heads behind him, but it's kind of cool. I like the way it's all laid out so you can see all three heads at once. It's pretty fun. Then the back of the box features a write-up about Monstar. I'm going to try and get this. That's actually, the glare is not so bad there. Monstar, leader of the Limbo Mob. Monstar is the head of the Limbo Mob and functions as the local criminal kingpin. He's been around Limbo for over 300 years. He has above normal strength, but when endowed within the... Slow down. Take it easy. He has above normal strength, but when endowed within the light of Limbo's Moonstar, Monstar's body transforms and is entirely covered in robotic armor. His strength becomes many times greater than in his normal state. He has jets on his elbows that he can use to fly through space, as well as fire red energy blasts. His most dangerous ability is the Starlight Blasts that come from what would normally be his eye patch. He has a personal vendetta against Stargazer and all who align themselves with the Silverhawks. You know, that write-up is more about armored Monstar, though, than it is about this Monstar. So, what are they going to do when they get to armored Monstar? What's that going to be all about? But who cares about the packaging? Let's get him out of there. So Monstar's all out of the box now. Let's talk about what all he comes with, and then we'll focus on the figure himself. First things first, you know, I always like to get the hands out of the way first because it's not that exciting to me. He comes with a lot of extra hands. So he's got a set of, can I see this still? Resting it? Yeah. So we've got a set of fist hands, and then we've got a set of pointing finger hands that are still kind of grippy. So they've still got kind of a grip thing going on there. Then we've got some really exaggerated sort of expression hands here. And then down below, we've got gripping hands, and then we've got one extra right hand that's also a gripping hand, but it's sort of like the index finger is a little bit further forward than the rest of the fingers. I really don't understand why that one was included. It's very close to a grip hand, and he has no accessories really that would entail gripping something, unless they plan on making something later on to go with him that gripping hand would be for. And then he's got sort of the expression hands on him that are a little bit less expression-y than these hands here. So in all, he has a total of 5 sets of hands and then 1 extra hand. He's loaded up with hands. So that's 11 hands he's got total. They really went all out on the hands on some of these figures. Bluegrass had a lot of hands too. So there's all the hands. Let's talk about... I guess we'll talk about the heads next. So the head that he has on right now is actually one of the extra heads. So the head that he comes with in the packaging is this one. It's got more subdued hair and a stoic look on his face. The hair is not as windswept off to the side. It's more subdued. Whereas this head, I'm going to bring this kind of over here. is an angrier face, and the hair is kind of swooping off to his right. And then we've got another head where the hair is swooping off to the left, and that head is got an even more open mouth, and his eye patch area is sort of glowing more. So you can see these side by side. This one is not, it's yellowish on the inside with a black outline of star. This one's white with like a pink colored outline. It's kind of like it's glowing. So really cool heads here. And these are all really well sculpted. Like, look at all that hair. Really well sculpted and painted. I love these heads. But I think this one I have on here is my favorite. I don't want the eye glowing all the time, but I like the hair being off to the side. And I like kind of the open mouth, because Earl Hammond, I believe it's Earl Hammond that did the voice on this, was so expressive and so like all the time that I like having this open mouth on him. All three heads are pretty heavy because of all this hair. So he does get a little wobbly when it comes to the head sculpt, just because it's got so much weight to it. But I feel like this one, where it's got the kind of hair off to the side, you can sort of rest it more on the arm, and that way it's not feeling like it's a bobblehead flapping around and stuff. But anyway, all three heads are great, but this one's my favorite. And then next up, I'm going to bring this little cube over here, because I think that'll help see these guys a little bit better. We've got two versions of Sky Shadow. We've got the pre-armored up one, before hardware gets a hold of him, puts the armor all over him. And this is really well painted and sculpted. He's got his little tongue out. His little tiny eyes are even painted in there. So that's really cool. And his wings actually move. So they're on little tiny ball joints. So you actually get wing movement on the pre-armored Sky Shadow. And then we also get a version of Sky Shadow where his wings are all curled in. So he's all kind of folded up, and he can kind of just balance on his feet. I think it'd be cool to kind of have him hanging upside down, almost like a bat, but there's nothing to hang him on. So you just kind of had to have him sit there. Or just knock him down. That works too. And that's all he comes with. So he's a little bit light on accessories. He's just got the three heads, all the extra hands, and the two versions of Sky Shadow. No weaponry or anything like that. Although Monstar doesn't really need weaponry. He is the weapon. Like, he's a big honking dude. Actually, you know what? I want to talk just a second about this version of Monstar. When I was a kid growing up and loving Silverhawks, they used to have these little Kenner toy guides. And inside one of those Kenner toy guides, they pictured this version of Monstar as a figure. And it said, like, coming soon or available. I don't remember exactly what it said. But I remember seeing this figure for Kenner as a kid, this and a Copper Kid, that both said coming soon or something like that on them. It's been a long time since I looked at that catalog, so pardon me if I don't remember every little thing about it. But I remember seeing it and being like, I want that Monstar so bad. I want the non-armored Monstar, and not being able to find it. And I actually sent a letter to Kenner asking where I could find this figure, and they sent me a letter back saying that this figure did not go into production, that it was not produced. And I was so bummed. And that was like my first exposure, really, to toys being prototyped and shown, but not actually being made. So as a kid, that kind of blew my mind that there was going to be this toy that didn't get made. And so I've always wanted this version of Monstar, his non-armored version, because I think this is a cooler look for Monstar. I think he's really, really cool looking. And the neat thing about Monstar in general, as opposed to other super villains, like you have Mum-Ra, right? Mum-Ra goes from this little tiny mummy form into the big Mum-Ra they ever living. He becomes this big giant character. Monstar, both his incarnations, both of his forms are both intimidating. You got that big giant armored version, but this one's no slouch either. Like, he's really scary looking. He's almost like a demon, where he's got these spikes and this fur coming out of everywhere and sharp nails. He's just a really cool looking character. So both forms of Monstar are intimidating. And the armored version is super intimidating. I can't think of another cartoon where the big baddie, if one of the single heroes went up against the big baddie, he didn't stand a chance. There were multiple episodes of Silverhawks where they would talk about Quicksilver has to go it alone against Monstar and he can't possibly win, because the big armored version of Monstar could like take out all the Silverhawks. So this version is still intimidating and still cool, but his big armored version was like a crazy big baddie. Okay, so that's all my Monstar talk out of the way. Let's talk about articulation on him. So he's got ankles that hinge back and forth. They're on, yeah, they're ratcheting. And then he's got a nice rocker that moves around. Single jointed knee, but it goes back pretty far. And then it also rotates where the calf meets the knee. Then we've got Super7 style Ultimates hips where they plug into the top of the thigh so they can rotate there. And then it hinges out to about there. It's not really restricted by that skirt piece too much. And they hinge forward not much at all because this waist piece actually comes down a bit. And then the rubbery soft fur piece kind of comes out of that. So it doesn't go forward and back very much, but you do still get some articulation there. Rotation at the waist is barely there, and that's because this ab section comes down. So it's not going to be able to rotate much. Mid-torso joint, again, not much rotation. Just a little wiggle back and forth, and a little wiggle side to side, and a little wiggle back and forth. Not much going on there either. Again, though, with these designs, unless you compromise the look of the character, the way this torso looks, and do like a joint that's going to make it not look as like it flows together, I'm okay with sacrificing a little articulation here and there. I'm going to be a little bit careful because this hair sculpt is going to interfere with the articulation, but it does rotate all the way around at the shoulder, and they hinge up to about there before these shoulder plates will stop it. And then we've got a single elbow joint that goes back and forth, ratchets, and rotates where it plugs into the bicep. Same with the wrists. They rotate where they plug in and then hinge in and out. And I believe all of the hands hinge in and out. None of them hinge up and down. We already talked a little bit about the head and how heavy it is. There's not much movement to it because that hair restricts. I think almost every head sculpt is going to be restricted by the hair. And that's just, again, the design of the character. There's not much you could do about it when you've got a character that's got that much hair going on, like that big, giant sculpt of hair. Paintwork on this guy is really awesome. He's got this great shading in his legs. Almost looks like rust. It's on his feet. It's on his torso. It's all over. It's got this really neat sort of rust shading. You see how kind of the fur of the skirt piece goes from black down into that reddish rusty color. Man, that's cool. Really nice paintwork on him. Man, this figure is awesome. I made a bit of an error the last review. I had said that Bluegrass was my second favorite, and that was not correct. I'm counting down from my least favorite to my most favorite. So Bluegrass was actually my third favorite, and this Monstar is my second favorite. Who is my top favorite? Well, let's do, before I do that, size. So at the top of this head with all the hair, he's just about a little over 7.5 inches tall. So he's a big boy. He's tall. He's not quite as tall, though. Let's bring in Mum-Ra. He's not as tall as Mum-Ra. So we'll bring Mum-Ra in here. But that's the two big baddies, and I'm probably cutting them off with my camera here. No, I'm not, actually. I got him back far enough. So you can see Mum-Ra is a bit taller than him. And when we get to the armored version of Monstar, it's going to be even taller. Like, that figure looks like it's going to be humongous. It's going to make this guy look tiny. But even then, like, this is the non-powered up version of Monstar, and he's still looking pretty intimidating next to Mum-Ra. Let's do him next to a couple of Silverhawks. So we've got Bluegrass here, so you can see the size of those two guys together. I'll bring them forward a little bit since we're not having to make room for Mum-Ra now. And then we've got my favorite of the wave, which is Windhammer, next to him. And Windhammer's a bit shorter, and this kind of works. Even though I think of Windhammer as big, I think of him as big because the Kenner figure was kind of big. If you look at the actual, like, character layouts for the cartoon, which these are based on, they're not based on the toys, this height is pretty right on. Windhammer was not that tall in the show, so this works. This Windhammer is so awesome. They just nailed that Rankin and Bass weird, thick... okay, I don't need to talk about him yet. We're not talking about Windhammer. We're here talking about Monstar. So Monstar is the same price as the other figures, at least I think. I'm almost positive. He's only $55, just like the other figures are. And he's a kind of a big, beefy figure with those extra heads and that big, wide packaging. Yeah, he's a little light on the accessories, but he is a very cool figure. And like I said, he's only just barely nudged out by Windhammer and how cool Windhammer is and all the stuff Windhammer comes with. I still think this guy is awesome. He's my preferred form of Monstar, even though I'm very excited about the armored one. He's just a really cool figure. And so if you're going to do this line, I would suggest you start with Monstar, because he's your main baddie, and he's a good, solid figure. And it may make you overlook some of the things we complained about on Bluegrass and Steel Will if you start with this guy and you're pretty happy about him. I think I've covered everything, right? If you're looking to order one, I'll leave a link down in the info section down below. The next review is going to be my favorite. Like I said, Windhammer. I'm going to bring him back in just because Windhammer's so cool. And I guess that's it this time. And then I think for Thundercats, when I get around to doing the Thundercats Super 7 reviews, and I am going to do them, I'm curious what you guys would rather me do. Should I do newest waves and work back, or oldest waves and work forward? You tell me. All right. Talk to you guys next time. See ya. Goodbye.